Ha! Hello, my friends. I really hope you don't hate me for doing this, but I'm going to try something a little different for this review. I really wanted to review Starlink, but because of my schedule, I discovered I really just couldn't. Like, I've just got a lot of other stuff takes priority, a lot of videos going on right now, and of course the sponsored Starlink video took top priority as far as this game goes because that had a hard deadline. Which, by the way, if you haven't watched it yet, I did a little sketch at the beginning that I think is really funny, and I don't often get to do sketches, so card in the corner if you feel like checking it out. Point is, though, I decided that the only way I could review the game without literally waiting like months for my schedule to clear up was to experiment with sort of a more off-the-cuff review, a little more casual, not tightly scripted and edited. I really hope that's okay and doesn't seem super cheap, but I just really wanted to talk about this game and I had to make it happen however I could. So let's do this. First, I want to touch on the most pressing matter. I'm seeing a lot of people who just don't quite know how the game works, or if you really need to buy all the toys to play, and I just want to run you through this real quick. It is awesome how many options Starlink gives you. So the basic way to play is with the toys. You get this little mount thing you can put your Joy-Cons into, and you plug the toys into that, and in real time, they show up on the screen. You know, like wherever you're at in the game, you can swap out your guns and your ship and all that different stuff. And I will say, it is surprisingly fun. Like, I don't know why it's so satisfying to do, but it is. It's just fun to do. It's fun to have them all out in front of you and kind of survey them. And it's, I don't know. It's like I said in the video I already did. It's just, it kind of brings out the kid inside of me, you know? It really elicits those feelings of when I was just a little tyke playing with ships and cars and stuff. And it's great. And yes, that does raise the cost considerably. You got to buy those toys, and that's so like if you get the the game, like the base game with the starter pack, that's $75, and that comes with like 2 ships, some weapons, a couple pilots, like a fair amount of stuff to get started, and then on top of that, it's probably going to be, I don't remember, a couple $100s or something if you want to buy it all. If you're really into toys and collectibles and stuff, or just this idea, like these toys are pretty great. Like they are fun, they are cool. Like like the R-Wing especially, like that's the kind of thing that I would put on display. It's a really neat little toy. So that option is available to people who think this is neat, or kids who just want to buy all the toys or whatever. But if you're like, no, I don't want to do all that, I don't want to spend all that money or have all that plastic stuff lying around, you don't have to. If you buy the digital version of the game on the eShop, it's $60 and it comes with a ton of stuff. It comes with like a bunch of ships, a bunch of pilots, and like most of the weapons. And what it does is it lets you, access all of this digitally within the game. You instead of swapping out a part in front of you, you pause the game and just go in and manually pick from your list of ships and weapons and stuff. And then if you do want to just go that little extra step further and get everything, it's like $80 for the full deluxe edition. But like really, you could get away with a $60 one and still easily play through the game, have plenty of weapons, plenty of stuff. So that is a really good deal. And then on top of that, even if you do have the physical version and you have like the toys and stuff, but you get a little bit of tired of swapping them out, then you have the option to play digitally even with your physical toys. Like you just, boot up a controller that doesn't have the mount on it, the game will detect that and say, oh, do you want to play digitally? Hit A or whatever, and you do. And from there, you can play handheld or with a pro controller or however you want and just, select stuff digitally. And like everything you plug into your mount, you've got access to for like, I don't know, it's like a week or something. It's like a really long time. So, you don't have to be constantly plugging it in. Like, you've got a nice long period of time where you can comfortably play digitally. And this is great because, like, I did enjoy playing with the toys at first. The further I went and, like, the more hours I put into the game, if I was having longer play sessions, I'm like, yeah, you know what? Right now, I don't really feel like dealing with all the toys. Or I feel like, playing digitally in bed. And so having that option just was awesome. It's like, it doesn't matter who you are or why you're into this game or how you want to play it, like the option is available to you as far as buying and playing. And I just thought that was really neat. So don't be scared off by the whole toy thing if that's not really your bag and it just looks like a game you want to play. There is an option for you. Really moving on to the game though, the biggest takeaway from when I first booted up the game is like the ads did not communicate exactly what kind of game this was. Like, at least from what I saw, it really just looked like a shoot 'em up game, like kind of like Star Fox. Like, I thought it was just going to be like missions and stuff like that. No, like, this is an adventure game. This is a full-on open world space adventure game. There are like 7 different planets to explore. You can fly around them in full 360 degrees, however many degrees a sphere has. And they're really, really big. Takes a long time to fly around the whole thing. There are 7 of them. And when you're done exploring a planet, you just point up and just go fly up into space. And you're just in space and flying around space. And like, the fact that it's so seamless is really awesome, and I know a lot of people have compared it to No Man's Sky in that way. And I haven't played No Man's Sky, so like for me, this is a new thing. This is the complete space adventure package I've kind of been waiting for forever. Like, I feel like I've been waiting for a complete space exploration game like my whole life. Like, the closest I've gotten to it is like Mass Effect 1, where you can, you know, go down to different planets and, you know, run around with your little truck and find resources and stuff, but it was like a really minimal, really stripped down version of this idea, and you still had loading and all that stuff. It was not seamless, whereas this is the whole thing. This is truly seamless. You can fly anywhere in the game. There are no loading screens or anything. As far as things that there are to do, let's start with space. I was a little bit disappointed that there isn't less to do in space. I mean, there's a fair amount of stuff. Like, it's just kind of the same stuff. You've got outlaw bases, you've got these Leviathan things to take down, and then, like, mostly the stuff to discover is just, like, shipwrecks and stuff to just kind of find and loot. It's a little bit annoying because, like, whenever you enter your hyperdrive to go really fast, outlaws will set up these traps, and you gotta, like, fly through these holes to avoid the trap, and it comes up a little too often. Like, it's almost every single time you turn on your hyperdrive, you have these little things. So the space experience itself, a little bit more repetitive. That's okay, though. Most of the time you'll spend on the planets. And that was another thing that was surprising to me. I didn't expect to spend so much time down on planets in, like, you know, hover mode. But it's still really enjoyable, and I kind of like the difference between, you know, you have your, like, dogfighting 3D space, zipping around everywhere, different angles and shooting guys, and then down on the planet you have the more, like, level, kind of more like platforming, and I think the two really complement each other really well. And the game even fits in some, like, if you pick up a large object that you can't just put in your inventory, you have to carry it somewhere, you can't fly, so it even can incorporate some, like, kind of platforming elements there where you're limited and you have to, like, bring a battery up to a ledge or something. And I think that is a pretty clever level design, and I really like, I don't know, I like the contrast between the two styles of play. The combat works differently for both, you know, the dogfighting versus the 2D plane fighting. Anyway, down on planets, you've got various outposts that you can build, observatories to explore the planet and see it better. You've got refineries, which you set up and they just send you money. You've got things that can make you mods, and, like, basically, like, you just go down, interact with some characters, build stuff, find stuff to beat. There are these like, one of the main, like, actiony things you'll do down on planets is there's these big extractors that you have to kill, and each one of those is fun. And you'll also fight these things called Legion Primes, and they're kind of like big old boss battles. And yeah, you're just running around. You can use this little pluck tool that you have to just pick up things in the environment. You can you know, mine for, like, minerals and stuff. You can pluck fruit and mushrooms to take back to observatories. You know, basically just collecting resources. There's basically an unlimited amount of missions you can go on. I'm pretty sure the game just kind of auto-generates them. So, like, at any time, you're like, I want something to do. Ask an outpost to be like, go grab this, go beat those guys, go take this over there. And so, a lot of that kind of, like, busy work, but kind of fun busy work where it's just stuff to do. You know what I mean? Like, just stuff to collect, stuff to get, stuff to upgrade. All the money that you get and the stuff called Nova that you collect in small quantities you can use to, you know, upgrade various things on your Equinox ship, which, you know, upgrades just stuff, you know, adding more mod slots to your ships and making more money come in whenever you get a shipment. And just various things that perk up the game and just make your whole experience, you know, make you stronger in various ways, help you out in the game's various systems. You can also collect mods, and this is really fun because, like, your ship and all your weapons, they all have a bunch of mod slots to just modifiers, just things like, oh, at plus 30 fire damage or plus 80 defense, or you know what I mean? Like, it does this on impact, just lots and lots of different things. And this is fun because you can get an ability where you can combine lower level mods to make higher level ones. So basically throughout the entire game, you're gathering mods. And as you do, you're constantly combining them and building them up. And that's one of the ways that's the progression of the game. That's one of the ways that you get stronger, is you're just constantly getting them and working up and building up your inventory higher and higher and higher. And it's fun because it means that mods are always a good reward for doing anything. Even the lowest level ones, you're like, oh, cool, I can combine those into a higher one and combine those with the ones that I already had and make a rare one and combine those into a legendary. And so yeah, between the mods and the money and the Nova, it's pretty good. There's a lot of stuff just to get, just to collect, just to loot all over the place, get from bad guys, get from chests, get everywhere. Then of course there's XP. Your ship and like the weapons that you put on them and your pilots can all get XP. Your pilots, they each have a unique ability, but then as they level up, you can put skill points into making those abilities stronger and giving them these other kind of passive abilities. And there's a lot to it, like that. It really feeds into the whole adventure aspect of getting stuff, and it makes for a much deeper experience than I think I expected going in. Here's a real big caveat though. This is a Ubisoft game. And if you don't know what a Ubisoft game is, it means that it's really big with a lot of stuff to do, and that stuff isn't necessarily always like super duper beneficial. They kind of have a reputation for just kind of putting a lot. Like there's a lot of padding in this game, and you know what? A lot of it is very repetitive. Like sometimes more than I would like. You are doing kind of the same things again and again and again, you know what I mean? And like there is not a lot of enemy variety. There's not a lot of boss variety. You know, like you'll be fighting dozens and dozens of extractors and a whole bunch of primes. You won't be too far into the game before you have seen kind of all of the types of things that there are to see, and you kind of just do those again. It'll throw curveballs at you and be like, oh no, now the Legion is like taking over the galaxy even more, so now there's primes on these planets, you gotta go get them and beat them down, and there's a little alliance meter, so you kind of, you try to control the entire star system and keep the Legion in check, you know what I mean? And it is a lot of padding, but I still really enjoy it, because like, here's the thing about Ubisoft games. Sometimes people will be like, oh man, all these Assassin's Creeds are the same, or all the Far Cry's are the same, or whatever, because they just have so much stuff to do. And like one person can only do so much, you know what I mean? But it's like, I play few enough like big, huge open world games that like, I only get into a few and I'm not like totally burned out on open world games. So this one, like I can see that it's fairly padded, it's fairly repetitive, a lot of the same stuff again and again, but it's like, if I'm enjoying the gameplay, I just kind of like that. It's relaxing. It's kind of nice to just go down a list and be like, oh man, I want to get all the extractors on this planet. Oh man, I want to build this many observatories. You know what I mean? Like it's just kind of fun. I can enjoy this big daunting list of things just to do and just be doing all these outlaw things to raid, just because I'm having fun, because each of it, because the gameplay itself is fun. I'm constantly satisfied. It's the feedback loop of getting stuff and making myself stronger, just the complete feel of the space experience to feel like I'm a space explorer doing all this stuff. It's really fun. Like I really, really enjoyed it. And that's one of the reasons I really wanted to do a review, because it's like, I think it's a really, really fun experience, but like it's gotta be your kind of experience. Like if that doesn't sound fun to you, some people don't like that. Some people don't like repetition at all. They want a really nice, structured structure of a game. They want a structured format. They don't want to repeat themselves. They don't want to do something that they perceive as busy work. So it's just like looking at this, like that's gotta be your thing. And that is definitely my thing sometimes. It's relaxing, it's enjoyable. I just want to sit down and just do stuff, because in this game there is always something to just be doing, and I love that. There's always somewhere to go. There are lots of planets to explore. Yeah, they're all a little samey, even like kind of the way that they look. They don't vary a whole lot, but they do vary just enough that I'm like always eager to like find the next one, go to the next one, you know what I mean? Swinging back around to the fighting, one very interesting thing is that like you've got one gun on each of your wings, left trigger and right trigger, and this is cool because you have different guns of different elements, and there's kind of a thing of combining elements. So like, for example, you shoot a vortex and then you shoot fire into it, it creates a fire vortex, which is like stronger, gives you these other bonuses. I have a hard time remembering the rest. That's like the easiest one for me to remember, but I know there's a lot of different ways that the weapons can interact with each other, and that's pretty cool. And it's also neat for co-op play, because then it's like your weapons can kind of complement each other. You're kind of combining elements as you're both blasting a guy, so that's cool. One thing about combat and all that is that the difficulty can be weirdly inconsistent, and I completely admit this just may be me not fully understanding some elements of the game, like maybe about like what elements work on what, or you know, like what kind of ship I should have or something, because like I'll be like blasting through an area, just killing everything in a couple hits, and then I'll get into like one dogfight or like one outlaw thing, and they'll just destroy me. Like they just, especially in space, like fighting any more than just a tiny handful of like outlaws, I don't know, they all shoot at you at the same time. You've got 20 guys all shooting you, and you can't move out of the way, and they just kill you in seconds. And so you're like, oh man, I need to switch ships, because that's kind of like your extra ships. You can either respawn back at the nearest place that you were, or if you have extra ships, you can use them like continues. But then I'll just like pop off my ship, put on another one, boot it up, blah, 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 die instantly. And I don't know, it's just like throughout the entire game, there were some fights that, you know, even like the last battle, the last few battles and the last missions, I just creamed them like they were nothing. But then there were other times where I'd go attack a Leviathan, and I don't know, like everything kills me within seconds, and I constantly have to hide to regenerate my shields, and I just don't quite get it. And when you get caught in that kind of thing where you're dying a lot, switching out the ships can be pretty annoying, and I think that's probably when I started to lean toward digital, like playing digitally, because I just didn't feel like swapping out the ships again and again and again. And if you don't have extra ships to continue, respawning back somewhere can take a long time to fly. Like, I don't know, the checkpoint system isn't always the best. Sometimes they'll spawn you at the nearest planet, which can still take a good several minutes to get back to where you were, just to die again quickly. So again, that could just be me. I did start to pick it up a lot better by the end, how I should be fighting, what I should be doing. So, yeah, just a fairly uneven difficulty curve, at least from my perspective. The story is perhaps the weakest element of the game, and it's kind of what prevents it from being like a really just truly awesome experience. It's a kid's game. Like they went at this with kids in mind. It's really just kind of, you know, it's generic. It's very cliched, and it's not like super awful or anything. It's not so like condescending and bad that I can't play it. Like it's fine. And especially like if I were a kid, I would probably be like, this is the coolest. Like this is the coolest thing in the world. As an older person, I can see all of the inspirations. Like there's a tremendous amount of inspiration from like Mass Effect in here. I mean, it's basically Mass Effect for kids. You know what I mean? And just a lot of other things. It's the kind of space sci-fi tropes that we've seen a lot of times. You know, the bad guy's name is Grax, you know, and you're fighting the Legion, which are just these like quick spawning guys. And I just, you know, it's the stuff we've seen a lot. So, and then some of the characters, they're not that great. The writing isn't the best. The voice acting is a little cheesy. It's very childlike. You know what I mean? And I one very specific complaint, like most of the characters are just kind of whatever. You just kind of ignore them. But like, man, there's the one, like, I don't understand companies, whether it's movies or shows or games or what, this idea of including a character who's like the modern selfie taking dude, like this obnoxious dude, like, whoa, gnarly brah, we're gonna take this ship up and do a hashtag selfie. And it's just like, I don't get it. I do not understand it. Why do you think that's entertaining? It's really not. I don't know, maybe it's just I'm not the right demographic. Maybe a kid would think that was funny, but I don't like that. It really takes you out of the experience when that guy is talking, and you just hope he does not keep talking. Anyway, pretty small gripe though. One cool thing about the story though is that Star Fox is in it if you're playing it on Switch, and like I thought it would just be like a couple Star Fox missions, you know what I mean? But like no, like his missions are okay, but they're nothing compared to the fact that he's just like a main character. Like they weaved Star Fox into the game. Like they put the Star Fox characters into the pre-rendered cutscenes. If you are Fox the whole time, he's interacting with every character, and they're interacting with him, and there are all these just unique conversations that they have. It does not feel at all as though he was just stapled on. It's like, no, like he's in this game. It surprises me that on other systems he's not in it because he's such a part of it, and that's pretty darn cool. And you get to be the Arwing and be Fox, and it's just neat. As a dumb Nintendo fan, I really did enjoy that. The graphics and the performance are pretty darn good. Like, you can definitely tell where the game has been scaled down, you know, versus the other platforms. You know, some of the stuff down on planets is just a little, you know, a little rough around the edges. Overall, it looks pretty darn good, though, and performance is good. There's some slight slowdown here and there, but it performs fine. I was never unhappy with the way it performed, and it even performs great in handheld mode, which is not always something you can expect. I really, really appreciated that the resolution is, I mean, you know, it's handheld mode resolution, maybe a little bit below 720p, but still not bad at all. Performance is still great, so the handheld experience, basically just as good, which is great for a big open world collecty game. So to wrap up, Starlink is pretty darn cool, and I think a lot of what I like about it is how, you know, some of it is repetitive, sure, but like in certain ways, it's quite ambitious, especially for what seems to be kind of a kid's game, a property that is pretty much aimed at kids. And it's like, this is a whole discussion I could have, and have kind of had, is you look at like Nintendo, who makes games that they think kids would like. That means simplicity and colorfulness and stuff like that. I like here that Ubisoft made what they thought would be a kid's game, but they were like, just because it's a kid's game doesn't mean it can't be ambitious and big. You know what I mean? Like, I've never played a full-on ship space adventure game where you could seamlessly fly to planets and that had a whole story and quests and bases to build and stuff to do. I mean, like I said, I've never played No Man's Sky. I don't know how close that is, but this is a first for me. So they've made something that's good for kids because of kind of the way that it's styled, but it's good for adults too. I'm an adult and I still had a really good time with it. It was definitely brought down by the more kiddish elements like the story. That probably brought it down a point, and then it was probably brought down another point by being just a little too much padding. You know, a sequel might fix that with just more varied stuff to do, you know, a little more variety, but in just the right ways. It was ambitious, and this is another thing I do a whole entire video on, but like I dream of a Star Fox like this. I dream of a world where Nintendo is willing to do this kind of thing with their properties, to be more ambitious and bold and make bigger games. Because like, I know a lot of people have been like, oh, this is the best Star Fox game ever. And it's like, in a sense, I can agree, because it is very similar to Star Fox. And if I imagined Star Fox being the actual main character, and this is actually a Star Fox game, just rebrand the whole thing, it would work pretty darn well. I would say that it wouldn't be quite right, because Star Fox is more about that, really like tight controls, on rails, kind of shooting guys. I mean, you've always had the dogfighting too, but like when I think Star Fox, I also think the more linear. So like, I would really love a Star Fox game like this, but I feel like they would have to better incorporate the linear shooting element, at least just like in places. And just while we're talking about it, the way that I imagine they could do that is like when you're flying through space and the little outlaw, like sometimes you're dodging asteroids, and sometimes you're, you know, flying through the outlaw security net trying to get through the holes, and it's like that's almost there. If they just brought in a little bit more of that and made it like, oh, you enter, maybe instead of being able to do hyperdrive everywhere, you enter slipstreams that go everywhere, and when you enter a slipstream, all of a sudden there are dudes coming up and you're shooting them as you fly and you're dodging all sorts of asteroids. It's just like you could turn that same thing that they already have, just kind of zero in on that and make it a little bit more of like that Star Fox thing where you're shooting and dodging guys in a little more of a refined way. If you took that and then combined it with the rest of what you already have, yeah, this could be a Star Fox game. Change all the faces and the character names and everything. This would be a Star Fox game, and it would be amazing. And I am just sad that Nintendo doesn't want to do that kind of thing. They're not willing to do that with more of their properties. They're not willing to go Breath of the Wild on everything, you know? But at the very least, we've got this, and at the very least, Star Fox is in it enough that we can pretend. We can pretend that this is actually a Star Fox game. I really did enjoy it. Like I said, it's not for everyone, and it is brought down a couple notches by some of the problems, but it's one of those things where it's like, I'm giving it a 5 out of 7, by the way. Sorry, I don't have the graphic and the big lead up. I'm just telling you, I give it a 5 out of 7, and that's like a really solid 5. And this is one of those cases where you know, 5 out of 7 is like good. It's not super duper duper good. It's good. I'm looking at it like how, you know, quality wise, but even though it was only like pretty darn good, I still really, really enjoyed it. Even though I could tell it was kind of padded and a little bare bones in places, I still really enjoyed the time I had with it. I was always very eager to get back onto that couch and get just messing around in space and building outposts and stuff. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed somewhat this review. I hope this format was not just totally terrible and boring, and you're like, oh geez, step up your game, Arlo. What, are you gonna do this when Smash comes out? But anyway, thank you for listening / watching. I will see you later, and you're beautiful.